I know what you want. You want the most amount of money for your home when you're selling it. That's what every seller wants. But did you know that if you price it wrong and think that just pricing it high is going to get you that, it could actually end up costing you money in the end? So today let's talk about pricing strategy and how not to lose money when pricing your home for the market. The temptation that most sellers face when getting ready to list their house is that they want to overprice it. They feel their home is worth more than what the market might be saying it is. And this is completely understandable. This has been their home for a long time. They probably really like it. They love it. They see no reason why it shouldn't fit what other buyers are looking for. But it's important to understand that all buyers want a deal. You bought your home and you probably wanted a good deal on that when you bought it. You might be buying another home and you're going to be looking at homes the same way. So how does overpricing actually hurt a listing when trying to sell? Well, there's two ways. One, you don't want to have to do a price drop 2 weeks in or 4 weeks in. Some say it's a marketing strategy where if you want to test the market, let's price it here. If in 2 weeks it doesn't work, let's drop the price to this. Now that's fine, but that doesn't always work in your favor. What ends up happening is buyers who are looking at your home, let's say it's a $950,000 house. That's what the market says it's worth. You decide to test the market at $1 million. Buyers aren't going to pay that. They feel it's only worth $950,000. If they're working for an agent, I'm not going to have them pay $1 million for something that I know is worth about $950,000. Maybe they're even thinking because they want a deal on a house in that area, they're actually trying to only offer $900,000. That's a $100,000 difference from your current list price. That's hard to make an offer. But if you now come 2 weeks in and price drop to $950,000, now that buyer says, well, hold on. They know their house isn't worth that now. My $900,000 offer now doesn't seem so bad. And they're still going to start asking questions. What's wrong with the house? Is there something wrong that they couldn't get any offers on it before? Now I can get a deal because now they've already dropped their price. So overpricing and having to do this price drop, while sometimes does work for marketing purposes as far as renewing sort of interest in a property, it can actually have a negative effect. The other thing that overpricing does is if you go to test the market for 2 weeks, and a lot of listing agents do that, right? If we're talking about listing your home and you want to test it at a certain price, I might agree, but we're going to test it for this, drop it in 2 weeks. If there's no interest, drop it in 2 weeks if we don't get any interest, any showings on the property. But what happens is you've now spent 2 weeks on the market with no interest. That's 14 days. If the average days on market, which right now is running around 50, 14 of those you had no interest. No one checked out your property. You're now stretching out your days on market. And when those days on market start to hit 30, hit 60, buyers really start wondering what's wrong with the property. Why isn't that home selling? This is where that's a home that I can get a deal on. Days on market, it's a very important metric because the longer it sits there, the more questions that buyers are asking themselves about that property. Now, to show you some really good examples of how pricing can affect time on market and the end sold price of a property, let's go to Zillow. Zillow does a really good job of laying out price history on it that you can go research yourself. So let's look at a couple where we have a property here, came on, probably overpriced, went through a couple price drops, and then finally sold. As you can see, it doesn't affect it selling, but it does affect that final price, and it also affects that time on market. So when you signal to buyers that you're willing to drop your price because you know it's not valued at that, that's going to get you a lower offer. It's also going to mean you're sitting on the market longer, which means more buyers approach you thinking that they can get a steal. Now let's look at a couple that did it right and how pricing right at fair value or longer can actually get done much quicker. You have a property here that came on the market after that first one we looked at and actually managed to sell a lot quicker. And so within 60 days, it was closed. Closer to a month, it was closed, and at very close to asking price. So you have to ask yourself, if you want to spend 4 months paying for a property you no longer want because you simply are trying to test the market. Just remember that testing the market could end up costing you in the end. Now, I hope you got some useful information out of this. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave any questions you have about real estate in the comments below. I'll see you next time.